We do not respect when there is no hard work involved. We have to stop reminding them how hard we had it, because all they doing is laughing at us. Ha ha ha. You the dummy that worked that hard, that walked 1,000 miles to Washington. You started out with pumps, didn't you? You came back with slippers, right? Oh, my life. Love bugs, hello there, Bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and tip your favorite narrator via Cash App at $NayRob on YouTube. And if you are not already a part of this book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes you, can be privy to all the shenanigans. I'm gonna give y'all some shoulder before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now let's continue reading about Mavis Staples. I read them comments. I love you more. Mavis had been summoned to Los Angeles around that time to meet Sylvester Sly Stewart himself. The soul star told her that he'd modeled the family Stone's harmonies after the Staples singers. He had promised to get Mavis into the studio for some recording to help launch a new label, but nothing much occurred except an unwanted introduction to Sly's increasingly decadent lifestyle. I went all these places with him over a few days in California. He kept on moving, but we never went in the studio, Mavis recalls. His manager had us over to his house, me and Sly. He was cooking out on the patio some steaks and potatoes. Sly hung out in this room, and I saw this white stuff everywhere. I didn't know what it was. I was young, but I knew it was time to go home. Yeah. He have your ass messing with that angel dust. The dusty. Just as he had with soul folk in action, Cropper took some chances using the studio as an instrument while tucking the Staples inside the lushest arrangements of their career. Electric keyboards, strings, and horns cushioned the elliptical fairy tale-like lyrics of Randy Bachman's chamber pop. A Wednesday in Your Garden, originally recorded by the Guess Who, a poetic Bank Crutcher Jackson message song. The Garden made a fitting bookend. I love those songs so much, Mavis says. I gave it my own interpretation. I felt like it was about whites not letting blacks into their lives. There was also a splash of weirdness. The Japanese folk tune, Salon Bushi, which the family had learned on a tour of Japan in 1968. Both Staples singers' albums with Cropper contain plenty of worthwhile moments as they document the group's transition from gospel to pop. If there was a downside to working with them, there were restrictions from going all out at first because Pop wasn't ready to make the leap to what he considered pop music, Cropper says. I should say lyrically reluctant because they had the dance element creeping in with our rhythm section. You almost couldn't avoid it. But they didn't want the street shiz. And I wasn't really sure in talking to Al Bell where he wanted to take them. I tried to maintain the original feel of the Staples Singers as a gospel group and do lyrics that weren't quite gospel, but still had the feel. I think we were all learning about each other. It wasn't until later with Al Bell that they got more down and dirty sounding with meaningful lyrics and hits started to come. The Staples era at Stax with Cropper is often ignored, but it contains several crucial songs, none better than When Will We Be Paid, the final track on We'll Get Over. The song, written by the former doo-wop singer Randy Stewart, framed the civil rights struggle as an unpaid debt by America for 3 centuries of labor and services. We had given our sweat and our tears. We've stumbled through this life for more than 300 years, baby. I don't even know what to say. And please don't be mad at me, but I'm telling you, it's like the further we get away from the struggle, the worse we become. Okay. So the other day I shared something with a young person. I put it on the members only post section, and I shared it on Patreon. And what it did was check me as a Gen Xer. We really have to stop beating down these young people because they don't do things the way we did them. And deep down, all it is resentment. Technically, we're mad at the young folks. I said it. You could say I said it. We're mad at the young folks because we had to work hard to get to the positions that we accomplished. Young people just worked smart. Yes, they're weaker, but they're also smarter. So we have to give them their accolades. We do not respect when there is no hard work involved. We have to stop reminding them how hard we had it, because all they doing is laughing at us. Ha ha ha. You the dummy that worked that hard, that walked 1,000 miles to Washington. You started out with pumps, didn't you? You came back with slippers, right? You did it your way. We doing it ours, which is social media. The young people have the range with social media, excusing their simple-minded behavior. Bitch, know your Black history, okay? Because I told you the little girl was mad at me and then told me, go to the back of the bus, Harriet Tubman, and I wanted to smack her ass across the street because she didn't know the difference. What I'm saying is, Gen X, we need to lighten up, period, because they're not going nowhere. We are. They ain't. Mahalia Jackson was born in New Orleans and grew up in a 3-room shack near the Mississippi River. She scrubbed floors as a child, singing the songs of Bessie Smith to take her mind off her aching knees and back. She would bring the emotional transparency of the blues expressed in slurs, moans, and wordless interjections into gospel, her most enduring musical love. At 16, she moved to Chicago, which she made do as a factory worker, florist, laundress, and beautician. Eventually, her one-of-a-kind voice earned her a recording contract and the guidance of the great gospel songwriter Thomas A. Dorsey. As a gospel singer, Jackson was a revolutionary who tested Dorsey's patience. Rarely did she sing any of his carefully plotted compositions the same way twice. She would draw out and slow down the meteor and stretch or contrast words, syllables, lines as the moment dictated. Few singers could rival her combination of range and emotional investment. Little 8-year-old Mavis Staples was rocking back and forth with excitement when she first heard Sister Mahalia's voice calling out from her father's phonograph in the family's South Side apartment. Longtime familiarity with Mahalia, assuming the role of neighborly mentor and surrogate mother, dispensing health and professional advice to young Mavis. Now, baby, don't forget to put on a dry shirt after you sing. Did little to diminish Mavis's awe. Even as an adult, well into her own career as a singer, Mavis never thought of herself as Mahalia's peer, but as her student and disciple, fetching her ice cream at backyard barbecues. Jackson was a dominating figure in gospel, but not because she was above it all. The voice on the mountaintop. She could be as diva-like as any of them, but when she was performing, there was little separation between her and the congregation. She walked the aisles, reaching into the pews and clasping hands. The music seemed to be flowing through her, a lightning rod acute to every moment in the room. I'm used to singing in church until the Spirit comes, Jackson said, which meant that as a singer, she was willing to take her time to bend the song, venture off course until she found what she was looking for. That sense of embodying the song, not just emotionally, but also physically, was what made Mahalia Jackson so beloved. She had a way of contouring her body at the waist when a note hit her just so. Mavis had been studying Mahalia from an early age, and she responded to and then absorbed the singer's most compelling attribute as an artist, a total giving of the self to the song. Great singers all develop their tics and mannerism for selling a song. By the late 1960s, Mavis and Mahalia were both well-established artists who had spent years on stage, learning what to do and what not to do to move an audience. But whatever scripted moments had crept into their routines briefly disappeared when they stood shoulder to shoulder on stage in July 1969, sharing a microphone and a common purpose. The occasion was the second Harlem Cultural Festival in Mount Morris Park. The performers at what became known as the Black Woodstock included a who's who of African American arts and entertainment. Sly Stone, B.B. King, Nina Simone, Abbey Lincoln, and Max Roach. The Fifth Dimensions, Alantuji, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Stevie Wonder, Moms Mabley, Pig Meat Markham. Over 6 weeks, they performed in front of audiences in the tens of thousands that spanned generations and cultural allegiances, from black militants to holy rollers. It was a confused and confusing time. The era of non-violent protests had ended tragically when Martin Luther King was assassinated that year, followed only months later by the slaying of presidential candidate and racial equality advocate Robert Kennedy. In the summer and fall of 1969, 8 bombings rocked New York City. Violent crimes topped 100,000 annually for the first time in the city's history. Murders and rapes were at an all-time peak and would continue to rise over the next few years. Unemployment nationwide was at its highest point in nearly a decade. It was not a time of celebration on July 13th when the Staple Singers performed with full band and horn section. Mavis, Cleo, and Yvonne wore paisley dresses and hoop earrings and neatly trimmed afros. Pops wasn't much for idle banter. Each moment on stage was precious, whether delivering a melody with a message or a mini sermon between songs that amplified their meaning. He was in an especially serious mood. Standing in the wings was a future presidential candidate, Jesse Jackson, who served as master of ceremony. Jackson looked like a sheriff out of an alternative Western with his scarf, vest, and star. Indeed, Harlem in the summer of 1969 had turned into something of a Wild West town. Police refused to provide security at the festival, so the Black Panthers were enlisted. The concerts went off without incident and yet were barely acknowledged in the mainstream media, even though their scale and artistic ambition rivaled that of any of the era's major rock festivals. The Staples finished their set but lingered in support for Mahalia Jackson's headlining performance. Jackson, in a salmon-colored gown and white shoes, entered singing "Oh Happy Day," marching up and down a long walkway into the audience. The breaks between songs got longer as the set continued, as if Mahalia was giving herself time to recover. "I'm trying to see what's going on," she said at one point while leafing through sheet music on a grand piano. She was only 57 years old at that point, but she was suffering from diabetes, and her health had deteriorated markedly since her second divorce a year earlier. After one break, she delivered a magnificent "Let There Be Peace on Earth." Her eyes squeezed shut and she sailed atop the piano and organ accompaniment. "Baby, Hallie don't feel too good," she said to Mavis. "I need you to help me sing this song." "Yes, ma'am. Whatever you need me to do," Mavis replied. She never told me what the song was, but as soon as the piano and the organ started, I recognized it, Mavis recalls. We were all church people up there. The song was Thomas Dorsey's "Take My Hand, Precious Lord," which Mahalia had widely popularized in the 50s with her definitive studio recording. She also performed it at Martin Luther King's funeral in 1968. 30 months from that moment, Mahalia Jackson would be dead. More than 40,000 people would show up to honor her at her long-time parish in Chicago, Greater Salem Baptist Church on 71st Street, and then 6,000 more would pack the Airy Crown Theater at McCormick Place the next day for the funeral. Aretha Franklin would be called upon to sing "Take My Hand, Precious Lord." But the torch had already been passed. The teacher had honored the student. Years later, a tape of the Black Woodstock performance was hand-delivered to Mavis by an anonymous fan. "I put it on, and I was in shock, and then I was in tears," Mavis recalled. She shared the tape with her family at Thanksgiving, and they were similarly moved upon seeing their old family friend in such a fragile, vulnerable state. When the Staples singers performed in Harlem in July 1969, Purvis Staples was not in his family position on stage between Mavis and Cleopa. His place was taken by Yvonne.
No.